IPMNation.com.
With Brian Brawdy. Brought to you by IPMNation.com. Get ready for the gong heard round the world.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All-natural being. Warning, all-natural being with Brian Brawdy is designed to shake your sense of self to the core.
It's full contact psychology with an empowering twist, a philosophical loofah for your soul.
For those of you not ready or comfortable releasing your inner superhuman, listener discretion is advised.
Here's your host,
Brian Brawdy.
Good evening and welcome. Thank you for stopping by. Where are we? Here we go. Thank you. Will you stop? Thank you for stopping by, I guess is what I wanted to say, for the 328th episode of the number one rated show here on IPMNation.com. You're in to All Natural Being, best I can tell, and the gong heard round the world. Broadcast as it happens, thanks to Telestream's Wirecast, here on IPMNation.com, and now multicast live on Facebook, YouTube, over at allnaturalbeing.com, and the new Brian Brawdy app. But however you come to hang with us, we're always pumped to have you, and always live from the Transitional Radio Uplink here in Columbus, Ohio. We're very excited about that. Also, with rebroadcast on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, SoundCloud, all the usual suspects. Greetings, wherever you are, here in the Garden of the Mortals. And what a gig it truly is. Because winning or whining, it's up to you and me. Life's your labyrinth, your shot at running the table, diving into the rabbit hole as you see fit, you alone. The hell with your critics. What do they know? They are more of an expert when it comes to your unique, your wild at the core. They're more of an expert than you are. It's time to own your primal scream, not placing it in the junk drawer. Front and center, where it belongs, right on the tip of your lips. And your ability to do that is why we're always putting your heart's highest priority top of the list, reinstalling and reinstating the true wit, wisdom, and wallop, I dare say, of your inner whisper. Rebooting your robust, finding your ferocious, all in time to out-brutal the brutal that is the cut and shuffle that fate deals you on a daily basis, and to bring your own bold once and for all. But before we hit it this evening, hello to my friends here in the United States and Canada, Mexico, the UK, my good friends in Ecuador, China, the Philippines, Brazil, India, Australia, Germany, Italy, France, Nigeria, Turkey, Japan, Singapore, Thailand, Belgium, Sweden, Israel, South Africa, Egypt and Puerto Rico, Kenya, the Netherlands, Colombia, Greece, Ireland, Peru, Poland, to those joining us from all over the globe. It really is great to have you with us. And I truly am fired up to be driving your bandwagon, to be your biggest fan, to be your virtual hitchhiker if you're out and about on the go. But either way, always avidly you. Before we jump in tonight's show, let me ask you, again, why let anyone hijack our cognition? Why let anyone play us like a sock puppet, our minds like a marionette? The days of needlessly torturing ourselves by being someone else's tool, they're over once we take the time to take life into our own hands. So what are we waiting for? Here's our opportunity to mortal up. So what do you say? Let's go kick in some doors. And tonight, speaking of kicking in doors, we're kicking around some thoughts, thinking, if you will, at the tip of the spear about your brain's boundaries, about the very margins of your mind. And, as you know, I always like to, I'm working with props, so I have this one, right? How you like this one? Sidewalk closed, right? So if you get to the point where you think, you know what, I could use a little spackle for my mind. It's a bit too porous for my liking. I want the sidewalk closed. I don't want people able to just walk up and fill me full of their pessimism, fill me full of their vitriol, fill me full of their opinion of what my life is supposed to be all about. Sidewalk closed. Enough. And that's what I'd like to talk tonight about boundaries. And I get this topic from my good friend Dan, who said, yeah, you know what? I get it. I get some of the things that you talk about, but did you ever think about talking about boundaries? And I thought, you know what, Dan, I haven't, but that would be cool. Why don't we? Why don't we try to do just that? Why don't we say tonight, let's talk about just how porous we are, where we allow it, as I said this morning in Bring Your Own Bold, where we allow our minds to mingle, right? And what can we do to kind of pull up the drawbridge over the moat, right? And stop letting all this negativity in that adversely affects our ability to put our heart's highest priority top of the list. So can we do that? Can we talk about boundaries, right? I'm not saying shut ourselves off from the world. We're not suggesting, oh, no, you can't listen to outside opinion. You want to be a bubble boy or a bubble girl. We're just saying, is it possible to draw boundaries? And maybe the boundaries are a little flexible at times. Maybe those boundaries allow you to discern in a particular moment, any particular moment in all of time, what opinions, what ideas, what concepts you let in, and which you choose to ignore. That's what we're talking about. Rita says boundaries are good for you and others that you interact with. I absolutely agree. Let's jump over here into the thread to say hello. Hello, Candace. Thank you for joining us. And Janile, thank you very much. Hey, Candace, yourself. Josephine, thank you so much for joining us here at All Natural Being. Rita, a big howdy right back at you. Darren, hello. Everyone. Every one of you is awesome. Darren, that's very nice. Thank you very much. Hi, Jamie. Nice to see you as well. Thank you for joining us here at All Natural Being. Henry, thank you for joining us. Rita, very valid point. Boundaries are good for you and for others that you interact with. And I think maybe the point there, Rita, is that boundaries just give other people permission to have boundaries. Let me also say hello to Blair. Blair, thank you so much for watching. And Blair, thank you for everything. And if Wayne is on this evening as well, thank you so very much for all the help that you give us to trying to figure out the best way to get the show on the air all the time. To Mitzi, thank you so very much. I have RBF people, at least in person. Leave me alone. I like that. Blair, nice to see you. Thank you, sir, as always. Josephine, thank you. Someone tried to complain to me about work today. I told him that my brain was closed for negativity. That's all I'm saying. Hello, Henry. Thank you for joining us here at All Natural Being. We're talking about being able to close the sidewalk, being able to close the egress that would allow people full of negativity to infect us with their brand of how they think our brains should operate. And are we a bit porous? We talked this morning about osmosis, the passage of a liquid through a semi-permeable membrane. And then, right, we go, wait, that's a little bit of a big term, but let's just look at it this way. Are we too thin-skinned? Are our brains too brittle? Have our spines morphed into balsa wood? We're going to be subject to the opinions of the committee vote. At the macro level and at the micro level, we're going to be subject to our own binge thinking. Right back at you, brother. Then there are those who choose not to honor your boundaries. Absolutely agreed, Rita. Candace, way to go, Darren. They must be related to my old lawn guy I ran off yesterday. That's right, Candace, you talked about running off your lawn guy. And if I remember, Jamie's waiting for the 1-2 punch of the plumber, if I remember correctly. But good for you, Darren. Rita, you're absolutely right. Then there are those who choose not to honor your boundaries. But then ultimately, I wonder, Rita, there's all kinds of people that aren't going to choose to honor our boundaries. But then it's up to you and me to go, yeah, you know what you may not do? Let me stand up and I'll take the ball, right? Let me take control of the bus. They're my boundaries. You don't want to respect them? They become brick walls. A little more flexible, right? Until you don't want to respect them, then they become brick walls. Mitzi says, I can do it easily on person, have a much harder time with social and news media. That's an interesting point. I absolutely see that, Mitzi. Blair says, you have to ask yourself, are they here because of what I can do for them or because they want to be here? Absolutely agreed. Absolutely agreed. And I guess, Blair, in a way, the only way to find out is to be that porous, is to let people in until at such time they prove themselves not worthy of being let in. There's nothing wrong for us to feel that way. There's nothing wrong for us to exercise those boundaries. As Josephine says, those who don't honor my boundaries. Oh, look at, that's fantastic, Josephine. Those that don't honor my boundaries are simply inviting me to set them more firmly. I couldn't agree more wholeheartedly, right? Boundaries in the brick walls. And then we can decide in the moment what we let in. We can decide in the moment. But I think for so long, we used to say mammal up all the time, and then we morphed over into mortal up. But as mammals, we're always groping for the nipple, right? We're always looking for that next sense of what we're going to ingest. And as we grow older, if we don't abandon that need to look outside of ourselves for sustenance, then I guess we kind of get what we get when we don't set those boundaries. Rita says, we have a choice to let them not honor our boundaries. Absolutely. Henry says, the best boundaries for your brain can be interpreted in several different ways. I can't wait to hear the different interpretations. Can't wait to hear. Probably a good time to mention 833-462-3968, 833-GO-BU, toll free if you'd like to call in. We're talking about the best boundaries. We're talking about borders for your brain, for your body. That sense of standing up for yourself. That sense of deciding what information you're going to let in. And does that information put your heart's highest priority top of your list? Or does it do something more to chop block you? Does it do something more to keep your passion in check? And why would we possibly want to do that? Why would we possibly want to have our day ruined by the rhetoric of another person when ultimately we're responsible for receiving that rhetoric? Why would we do that? All right, let's go ahead and take our first call. Good evening. Welcome to All Natural Being. Who's this?
Hello there, brother. This is Henry.
Hey, good, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful, man. How's everybody doing out there?
I think it seems like everyone's doing good. We're all ready to hear you say the best boundaries for your brain can be interpreted in several different ways. But before we get to that, let's see. Lee says, good evening, Lee. Thank you for joining us here at All Natural Being. Lee says, I love to hear your thoughts on resetting boundaries with people who have crossed them before. So, Henry, let's get to your point first. The best boundaries for your brain can be interpreted, as most things can be interpreted in several different ways. What are you thinking?
Well, I'm thinking that first we create boundaries that simply stop the flow in either direction, in or out. First, that's the first thing. Create a stability, create a constant. Mm-hmm. And I think then after that, we simply identify the boundaries that sift through and sort out all the stuff that's already there. And then I think we establish a new boundary that keeps any unwanted stuff coming, that keeps the unwanted stuff out from getting in. Okay. And that's the thin skin, thickening the skin and all of that.
Sure.
And then I think if we set the personal boundaries to eliminate some of the old outdated stuff that's inside the brain, get stuff out.
Sure.
Start emptying that glass.
Spring cleaning.
And then I think, yeah, exactly. And then I think finally you simply decide on the boundaries that you'll use that will allow the selected stuff that you want to then come in. That now it's your choice what you want to have come in and have that steady balance. I mean, I've used that analogy before about how you cannot fill a full glass.
Sure.
And that's very much, I think, how you see how we set boundaries for ourselves, but also for our mind.
And Mitzi says, I think our boundaries change as we grow. I couldn't agree more. As well, yes, they should change as we grow. And they need to change as the lessons we need to learn change. Candace says, when negativity is pounding on me, my boundary kicks in. Took me a long time to figure that out. That's a great point. Denise, good evening. I'm glad to, I have to say hi to Denise real quick. Denise, hello. Thank you for joining us here at All Natural Being as I'm watching all the different things going down with Hurricane Florence. I'm glad to see that it took a little bit of a turn, and I'm glad to see, Henry, as I'm sure you are, that it's really lessened in terms of, I think it was at one time a Category 5, then a 4, now a 3. Now they say it'll be a 2 or a 1 before it comes on shore tomorrow. But, Denise, I've been thinking about you all, and I'm glad, at least as it stands right now, glad to see that you're somewhat out of the way of it. I want to return to Lee's question real quickly. I'd love to hear your thoughts on resetting boundaries. And, Henry, when I get ready to answer this, I think a lot about what you talk when you talk about the ego, and that ultimately, when you not eliminate, but illuminate the tricks of the ego, when you get on top of it, boundaries become a good bit more flexible. Because what I've found in interviewing a lot of people about it is that the thing that causes the boundaries is the offense that the ego takes. But if you look at a Tai Chi master, if you look at, you in martial arts, you fight someone that's really good, they'll tell you that they have very little boundaries. That everything that comes at them, they redirect. So I'm wondering, when Lee asks about thoughts of resetting boundaries, I think what I first do, Lee, and then Henry, if you could comment, I reset my interpretation of what the offense is. Right? Because I think of it like road rage. Like I think Candace said the other day, make sure everyone stays off the road whenever Brian's driving. But I look at it at times where someone will do something, and just as I feel like that little switch getting ready to flip, I go, does it really benefit me to waste any of my energy trying to give this person a lesson in driving etiquette? And the boundary just falls away. Let them do what you want, needle nits. You want to cut in front, cut in front. I will tell you, one of the coolest things I love to do whenever they let me drive anymore, I love to get behind a car and you pull up to an intersection and you motion with your hand for someone. No, please, you first.
Yes.
You first. No, please, you go ahead. And people are just blown away by it. They go, you're going to let me go first, but you have the right of way. Yeah, I really don't care. Right? Just, would you like to go? You look like you're in a lot more of a hurry than I am. Or someone will do something and they'll honk on the horn and you can just tell they're just ready to go off, and I wave and go, hello. And you just see them disarmed in that moment because they're ready for you to go to guns. They're already, at DEFCON. What is it, Henry? Is DEFCON 1 worse than DEFCON 5? Which is the upgraded one, right? They're ready to go to DEFCON, whatever the freak they're talking about. And you just go, hey, brother, hey, sister, please go right ahead. Go right ahead. So I think, Lee, maybe, and Henry, what do you think? I think that when it comes to resetting the boundaries, I accept the responsibility of resetting my ego's interpretation of the offense. And then I find my boundaries become a good bit more flexible than they were before. Yes. Henry, what say you?
No, there you go. That is exactly the way I see it too. We have to define what is the boundaries that have been crossed and that the violations have been done in the past. That's the first thing. Number two, you have to look at it from a different perspective. Remember, we're not right and we're not wrong. Neither are they. And it's simply really taking a good solid look in the mirror at yourself and establish for yourself, okay, these are my boundaries and this is what they have crossed. Well, why are these my boundaries? Why have I restricted myself to this? And what has forced me to identify with this as my boundary? And once you start to do that, you do find that your boundaries start to lessen because you realize these are things that you were taught to do.
Sure.
These were things that we simply learned from the past. And if we are going to change ourselves, we're going to change everything else. We have to change ourselves first, and that is one of the first things to start to really understand that people function the way that they normally function because this is all that they know how to do. That includes us.
As
and
Josephine says here in the thread, Henry. I'm sorry, I was just going to interrupt and tell you, as Josephine, I think she concurs. She says, I don't take offense anymore as I know it's a projection of their inner pain.
That's it.
That's a really great way of looking at it. And I would add to that, Josephine, maybe even a projection of our inner pain, right? It's two bags of pain, right, meeting. And if you step back from it, as Rita says, they don't know what to do with you being nice. Darren says he thinks it's an awesome way to look at it. Denise says, hi, Henry. I'm sure, Henry, you want to say hello to Denise back.
Hi, Denise. How are you?
Excellent points, Brian and Henry. Thank you, Lee, very much. That's just my take on it, right?
Lee.
Where most times I look at it and go, am I being inflexible? Does it really matter if someone just rammed me in the tuchus in a line at a grocery store, right? And they're not paying attention. They ram their cart right into me. And then right at that moment where you go, ew, you're going to pay for that. And I go, really? I don't think they intentionally from 100 yards back go, oh, watch this. I'm going to ram into him from 100 yards away. I don't think people think like, maybe they do. I don't know. Do you know what I mean?
No, exactly. And you're absolutely right. It is all our perspective. It's our perceptions that are really coming under question. And the more that we can understand that, the more that we can really take an honest look that the first person we need to really question about all of this is ourselves.
Sure.
We become far more tolerant and far more forgiving.
Sure.
And we tend to bend a lot more than what we normally would because we have changed. We've changed ourselves.
Mitzi says, yeah, we see what we're looking for. That's another very valid point, right? Before we go to guns, we get all upset. We project, as Josephine said earlier. Mitzi says, yeah, we see what we're looking for. Candace says, misery loves company. No thanks, right? That's a part of the boundaries.
Right.
Go, you want to be miserable? It's your right. You have apparently, a lot of people don't realize this here in the United States with the Constitution and all. You have a First Amendment right to free speech, free association, free press, and free misery. You want to be miserable?
Yeah.
It's your right. Go right ahead.
That's right.
You know what I mean? You'll forgive me if I'm not going to join in the little pity party, right? Let's say hello to Janile. Janile, thank you for joining us. If I haven't said hello already. Mitzi says, we've all had friends that are only seeing the negative. And she honestly, as I would have to admit as well, she says, and sometimes it's me. I'm sure it's me sometimes. Yeah, of course. So I've learned a lot from you, Henry, over, especially since you've started this in the course of your writing over the last few months, is that when I look at those boundaries, I just think, you know what? Maybe I can alter my position on the inside, right? Much the same as in martial arts. You know, you're going to get, you're about ready to get kicked or punched. You blade, you step back, any of the different things that we know of from martial arts. Blair could comment on that. All show Blair could comment on that. But what we do is we go, yeah, they're going to throw the punch. I'm just not going to let it land, right? I'm just not going to let it affect me. And then you become more fluid than foundational, I guess. Henry, what do you think about that? More fluid than foundational is the point I would make.
Yes, you become far more tolerant, which is a great thing to be for yourself. Being tolerant of yourself. It's not so much tolerant of somebody else. You become much more tolerant of yourself because it is our ego. That's who established the boundaries.
Sure.
And it was a way for us to become defiant, a way for us to react instead of simply act. And so, yes, it's a way of us putting out the fire before we throw the gasoline in there to make things worse. That is the one thing we as humans do so well. Something occurs that we have lived with and defined as against us, and we react beautifully, and we just stir the pot, and all of a sudden there's an argument. Well, when you realize that you have the control, that someone else can't argue with themselves.
Sure.
It just is sort of a really embarrassing thing to stand there talking and yelling at yourself.
Yeah, it is. Trust me, I do it all the time. It's very embarrassing.
Yeah. Well, so long as we don't participate.
Right?
Then
You should
no
see me in the backyard
Yeah,
when I think no one's watching. Right? Oh, I am Gemini. And now, after the brain surgery, I can say I'm of two minds. I have a medical card. It proves I'm of two minds. Let me say hello to Sarah very quickly. Sarah, thank you for watching us. Josephine raises a great point, and I'll share a quick little story. Josephine says, I started asking, are you okay when someone is nasty to me online or in person? And I remember shortly after, literally hours after the birth of my second son, he was born prematurely. And there came a point where I had to leave, and he was going into the NICU, and I had to go somewhere, and my daughter Paige was with me, and that was no doubt my fault. It was no doubt I was rushing. No doubt I was trying to get what I needed to do and get back to the hospital and see what I could do to help. And there was a guy that, I don't know what I did. I must have done something to set him off. But he was like laying on the horn and spitting on the inside of his window and poking at me and everything else. And in that moment, right, just as I'm, the Irish New York cop, just as I'm trained to do, I just pointed at him and go, you should just pull right over then, right? Why don't we just finish this now? You should just pull right over. And, of course, he did. So I pulled over, and Josephine, to your point, he got out of the car, and I sat there, and my daughter is just like petrified. She's looking at me, and he comes storming up, and I go, are you okay? Well, I think you're having a stroke. Are you okay? Because let me tell you, about a quarter of a mile down on the right-hand side is the police department. If you don't feel like you can make it there so that we can get you an ambulance, well, I can put you in the trunk of my car, and I can drive you down to the police department so that the paramedics, when they come to do whatever they do to revive you, if you're not feeling well, I'll offer you a ride to the police station. Blah, 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 blah. And then, of course, you got to open the door and you get out. Well, as soon as you get out, everybody and their brother's a badass when they're behind the wheel. You get out, and that all of a sudden, oh, no, I'm fine. No stroke here. I'll take myself to the hospital, right? So I think Josephine's point is a really good one. I just say, hey, are you okay? Are you having are you having a heart attack? Are you, right? Some type of seizure that causes, right? Or do you have like impromptu Tourette's? Just causes you to bark out at complete strangers? And I found that at least it diffuses it for me when I ask the other person if they're okay. Darren says, a small tangent. My birthday is in June. Oh, thank you, Darren. So is mine. June 2nd. Well, maybe we're both Geminis. John says, hello, everyone. So, Brian, is that really the best way to handle that? Yeah. You know what? Here's what I've begun to believe about me. Mitzi, I may not always handle it the best way, but I've learned to handle it my way. And I would say, given the sheer look of terror on my daughter's face, I would have been better off not volunteering to help the guy. And I think in this day and age, Mitzi, you're probably right that doesn't matter if I'm 6'3" and the size that I am when I get out of the car. There are crazy people out there that could go, oh, well, I'm glad you're 6'3". I brought a handgun. Right? Then what are you going to do? Then you got to fall back into law enforcement. You got to do all the rest of that stuff. So you're absolutely right. I don't know if it's always right, but I know it's always me. Right, Mitzi? So I know I've got no one to in terms of the acrimony or the applause. It's always Brian. I'm never pointing a finger at anyone else. If it's either good or I get myself in a big pot of hot water, I got no one to blame but me. And I can't tell you how liberating it is. Mitzi says I'm 411 but crazy. So I don't know. But I bet if you ask Paige, right? Josephine says, are you having a panic attack? Did someone just die? But if you ask my daughter, just from the sheer look of terror in the face, because the guy gets out of his car, comes right back to my window, and I just sat there. Are you okay, sir? Do you need a paramedic? Need me to call 911? Haven't figured out how to work your cell phone, haven't you? All right. So Mitzi's probably right. That was not the best, right? The best way to handle it. But I still laugh about it. And I've seen the guy before, and he looks away. Afterwards, I've seen the guy in other places. And he just is like, one time I was with Paige, and Paige goes, Dad, please let it go. Let it go. Let it go. I go, I got nothing to hold on to. What do I care? I thought he was injured. He obviously pulls over alongside the road. Maybe he had a blowout, a flat tire. Maybe I don't know much about cars, but maybe he had a spark plug that malfunctioned or whatever. I don't know what it was, but in any event. All right, sorry. Seems like throwing gas on the fire. Thank you so much. Thank you. Because here's what can I just say this, Henry, and then I want to get your point. Because Mitzi raises a valid point. It seems like you're throwing gas on the fire. Here's what I learned early on in law enforcement, and more certainly early on in martial arts. There are people that will continue to target and victimize other people. So you could say that my actions absolutely were throwing gas on the fire, but I can tell you he hasn't done it since. Right? I remember being involved in an altercation where I was coming home from a date one time. I was out with a date in Chicago. We were walking down our street to go home, and I heard this lady screaming. And I looked over, and someone had her over the hood of the car. And the guy, I couldn't tell who he was at the time, but I could tell that there was a shadow, a body of some sort had another body over the hood of the car, and he was taking a knife trying to cut off the strap to her purse. And it would come later, Mitzi, where someone said, did you really have to run up and get involved? Did you really have to chase the guy down and take both the knife and the purse away from him? Yes. Yes, I did. Right? Now, maybe that was throwing gas on the fire. I get that. But I can tell you that he'll think a second time about victimizing someone else. And Henry, if you could talk about just the karma of it. Maybe I don't mean karma like other people, but if you have the ability to help another human being and you don't, and the bad guy or the bad girl goes, oh, that was easy, I'll go victimize someone else. It's always been my opinion that karma is on you as well. You had the ability in that moment to let that person know, let the aggressor know. Not everyone is just going to bend over and be victimized. And when you don't, it's unfortunate, but I think there are times in the world that gives predators a chance to do it again. And it could be gas on the fire, Mitzi. You're probably absolutely right, but I just don't know. I guess I'm a pyromaniac in that regard, Henry. I've just never learned, right? I'll bring a flamethrower. Okay, I got a blowtorch. I'm good with it. So, Mitzi, I'm sure you're absolutely right, but I've never learned to handle it any other way. Henry, what say you?
No, I guess I really can't fault you that at all. No, if it's, you got two issues. One, the first issue with you in the car and stuff. Yeah, I think just inquiring as to are you okay? Is everything all right? I mean, I had to do that before, where is everything? What do you mean? Is everything all right? Well, you just seemed like you were in really a rush, and I just wanted to make sure that you were okay.
Right.
And that usually diffuses it. On the other circumstance where you're coming up to something where there is a crime in process, I've jumped in many times in that because you're right. I think if somebody feels that they can get away with it this time, the next time they just might kill the person and go on and take that next step. And
it's
that's
on
not
you.
What I think is right.
I think it's on us.
We have a responsibility, not just to ourselves, but also to our fellow humans. And I think that is to make the statement or set a statement that there's some action, some activities that really are not appropriate. And stepping in. I mean, whether it's somebody holding somebody up or somebody trying to rape somebody or some,
sure.
Yes, I think if you've got the whereabouts and the wits about you, and you've got the capability to take care of the situation without getting hurt, then and even if you do, it's a minor hurt, then go for it. I've done that before. Yeah, I don't let anybody get away with something that's just wrong.
And I think to Mitzi's point, she goes, is it gas on the fire? Could very well be, but I sleep great at night. Well, I don't know about you, Henry, but if I were involved in a situation and I thought I could do something to make a difference and I didn't do it, I don't know if I could fall asleep at night with myself. Right? Now, I'm not saying that everyone should go out and do this. And people go, well, that's just vigilante justice, just like living in the Wild West. Yes, I think it is. And oddly enough, I'm very good with it. Right? If you're gonna try, like this horrible thing. Did you see about the guy with the 3 young kids as a family member? He was a store clerk somewhere, and he was in the middle of a robbery. And whether he has a stroke or a heart attack or whatever, he drops to the floor, and they come in and clean out the cash register. They come out and wipe out the shelves, take all the liquor and the cigarettes, whatever they're going to do, and the guy's in intensive care now.
Jeez.
Stepped over his body. So, yeah, I think at times you just have to get to the point you go, welcome to the jungle, right? And Blair, if you're still here, I know Blair has contemplated this type of thing before. You can't, especially if you're trained that way, you can't let a victim be victimized if you could have done something in the moment to help them. And I know that's
right.
A little different than me suggesting someone that's just got road rage, Oh, I'm sorry. Are you having? So it's probably a little disingenuous for me to even say it in that regard. But so yeah, it could very well be me throwing gas on the fire. Darren says character is acting like someone is always watching. Well, I think they are, Darren. Yeah. You and I are always watching, right? You can say character is someone is always watching. I am I know what I'm capable of. Just as importantly, I know what I'm not capable of. But I'm watching, and I would feel horrible if I wasn't able to help someone in that particular moment that needed it. Denise says, witnessing a crime and not doing anything is just as bad as committing the crime. I'll tell you what, Denise, I'll bet you people are going to disagree with you, but I don't. I don't disagree with you. And I think that, and I'm not saying that everyone has to look at it that way, right? I remember not too long ago, someone said, well, it's easy because of your size and your training and some of the, what would you call them, Henry? Issues maybe that I have left over from childhood, right? That maybe I'm uniquely qualified to just go nuts at a drop of a hat. Maybe that's so. Maybe that's so. I don't know. Lee says, I think in the crime situation, if you were the person being attacked, you would want someone. I'm with you. I'm absolutely with you. You'd want, I'd want someone to think someone would come to my aid or my family's aid or my loved one's aid or my friend's aid. Rita says help is good when you're in trouble. Well, maybe we can pay it forward. You know what I mean, Henry? Maybe you go, okay, I'll pay it forward now so that, the next time that I'm subject to a chop block by fate. I don't know if I ever told you this story, Henry, but I got my job in law enforcement because I pulled over one time and a couple of guys in a car were roughing up a patrolman.
Wow.
And I pulled over. And at that point, to be honest with you, if it had been two cops beating up on one guy, I'd still be in prison. It just, what mattered to me is that it was 3 against 1. What mattered to me is that it was 3 against 1.
Mm-hmm.
Thank goodness it wasn't the other way. Or I'd have been in county, I suspect, and probably have a totally different outlook on it. Lee says, I aspire to do no reasonably avoidable harm. Sometimes inaction creates reasonably avoidable harm. Boy, I wish I could see the rest of that. That's a very good point. Very good point. All right, so I know I got sidetracked there when I, just talking about Mitzi's thought that I may have thrown some gasoline on the fire. But I guess, right, and that's the part of self-compassion that we talked about this morning. That's a part of knowing where your ego ends and just your super ego, your higher self, as Darren said, to act as if someone's always watching. Then I believe, Henry, there is a part of us that will hold ourselves accountable for the good that we could have done, hold us accountable for the inaction that we didn't, the inaction that we took or the action that we didn't take when we could have to help another human being, even to help ourselves, I guess I would say.
Absolutely. I think we're defined by the way we walk. If we talk and we say we're a certain way, and this is the things that we believe in, but you don't walk that talk, you don't prove it, you don't show it to everybody else, then you're a hypocrite. And I think that there are times that we do have to. I mean, I can be pretty kumbaya and pretty mild-mannered, but when there are things that are going wrong, things that are, the underdog thing, I'm right in the face of it because I believe you have to be. That's part of walking the talk. If you really are going to preach compassion, well, you better be able to show it when the time comes. And compassion is in a multitude of ways.
Agreed.
And getting in the face of a crime is one of those ways of showing compassion for the person that's being victimized. Absolutely.
And another way of showing compassion, as I had a sensei say to me decades ago, 20 years ago or more, that sometimes compassion is only compassion when it shows teeth. Right? So if you're the bad guy and you're going to do it, Candace says, shocks me, people videoing instead of helping. Did you see this one, Candace, where a security guard was videotaping the cop on the ground rolling around with the bad guy? And the cops keep screaming to the security guard, help me, put the camera down, I need your help. And she kept filming. Yeah, they fired her. She's, I don't know where she's working now, but she's not a security guard anywhere. And so Candace, I see your point. Darren says, right? Hop in, mix it up. I wish Sue were on the, I'll tell you one other quick little story. Sue, who was on last evening, used to be my producer when I was a television reporter in Chicago. And there came a time where I was sent to cover, Henry, this is a part of my mental illness apparently, but I was sent to cover a high school football pep rally. So we'd go in Friday mornings, right? And everyone would get fired up and this and that. So a part of the rally which I was there as a reporter, I'm supposed to be talking about, a part of the rally is the offense and the defense playing tug of war. So I'm standing there. We get ready. We come back from a commercial, and the offense and the defense are pulling the tug of war. And I should have known then that maybe the amnesia came long before I had the brain tumor. But if Sue were on, she would tell you when the offense started losing, because the big defensive guys were just huge. When the offense started losing, I handed the microphone to Sue and jumped in. Cameras going, lights, live, everything. Producer screaming in my earpiece. Then I went and anchored. Forget that later they go, well, did you think maybe just they needed to lose? No, I didn't think that at all. I saw there was an underdog. Sue was right there. I took the microphone, handed it to her. Right here, Sue, hold this. Ask Sue sometime. She'll go, it was the wildest thing she ever saw. And I think they re-upped my contract after that because they were like, we really don't know what Brian's going to do when he's on camera. Mitzi thinks I throw gasoline on a fire now. You should have seen me on live TV with a microphone and an IFB. I'd do anything, right? Because I'm not normal, I guess, Henry, is what I'm trying to say. So sorry, but that's another little story where I thought, you got to stick up for the underdog, even if it's a high school football tug of war, is all I'm saying. You just,
Yep.
In my estimation, that's what you got to do.
I love it. I love it.
David Ray, good evening. Brother Bowman, thank you for joining us here at All Natural Being. We're just highlighting how crazy I've been throughout my course. I really think that maybe I started having amnesia long before the surgeries. Just a thought, Henry. I don't know. There's been something wrong with me long before the shunt.
No, not at all.
Candace says, guy in New York set up a fake attack on the street and no one stopped over and over again. I think I've seen something about that. I couldn't imagine that. But that, I suspect, is the world that we live in. The world that we live in.
It is the apathy of the human spirit, I think, is at this point. It's really sad.
It is just that, right? You can see someone else in need, someone else in pain. I know there have been plenty of times where I've stopped to help people change their tire, right? They got a flat tire alongside of the road. It doesn't matter what a time of day or night. And I guess maybe ultimately, Henry, this isn't isn't Brian such a knight in what, shining armor, riding in on a white horse or whatever it is. But it's just that I would want someone doing it for my family. So it's more of a function of paying it forward. Candace says they just kept walking and ignoring. I believe it.
Yeah. And when they confronted of why they didn't help, how many of them just simply will lie about it? Oh, I really didn't pay attention. I wasn't really. Right. I didn't notice. I mean, it's horrendous. I don't know. It's. You're right. I would hope that while my job is to protect my family.
Sure.
That while I'm absent, that someone else would
stand up and do that.
Help the family.
Yeah,
exactly.
I'm absolutely with you. Same thing. A car accident, building on fire, any of these other things. We're not all that far away from September 11th, and you think about all the firemen, all the rescue workers that ran into the building.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. to save complete strangers. And you could say, well, exactly. It was their job. They didn't do that for the 50, 60, 70. I don't know what a fireman makes in New York. They didn't do it for the pay. It's the same thing like people in the military, especially people in special forces. I mean, it's just not a normal person, Henry, that runs to the sound of the gunfire. Just not a normal person, but they're out there, right? What do they say, sheepdogs or whatever? I think the term is what a couple of my brothers have told me. It's not normal, but you can't let people stand by and hurt or victimize other people if you have the ability to do something about it. I'm not saying run out there and be a superhuman if you weren't trained to do that, if it isn't a part of a part of your physical upbringing, I guess I'm saying. But you can always call 911. You can always scream out. You can always let the bad guy, I don't want to be sexist, or the bad girl, right? I'm not mansplaining. You can always let the bad guy or the bad girl know, hey, I see what you're doing. Knock it off. I love these new Ring doorbells. You've seen these new doorbells?
Yeah.
I just love them, right? But you could do that. Like, I don't know how we got sidetracked. That's my fault, no one else's. Good evening, Michael. Thank you for joining us here at All Natural Being. And to Jen as well. Jenny, thank you so very much. Mitzi says, ugh, lost my connection. Boy, I know what that's like. But apparently, Wayne said to me that during the 24-hour thing, Henry, that Columbus, you got to love it, Columbus, and as a side note, I felt really bad for Jack Hanna the other day. You know, the curator at the Columbus Zoo? It was his 40-year anniversary. They had a big party for him over at the zoo. Rain nonstop, 100% rain for 3 days.
Wow.
Yeah, so what are you going to do? So in any event, that's why the power...
That was a great zoo, too.
It is a great zoo, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Ohio for an acronym. Oh, how I'm out of here. Okay, so, but that is to say, I know what it's like to lose your internet connection. All right, Henry, save me from myself. So what were we talking about?
Save you.
Save me from myself. We were talking about boundaries. And when you decide not to let your ego run the show, the boundaries are a good bit more flexible, as they naturally should be, wouldn't you think?
Absolutely right. And I think that's the benefit of it, by staying cool and calm and not reacting.
Sure.
And it allows us to become a bit more proactive, and which is great. I mean, I'm sure Lee would be pleased if we were there should anything, God forbid, happen that he needed assistance, and that we'd be there for him, Sure. I mean, and I'm just joking, Lee, but that's but no, that's the key. Our boundaries really are there. They're fixed and they're firm until we realize that it's our ego that set them there. And once we can actually look at it and say, wait a minute, that's not who I am, that's not what I'm about, all of a sudden those rigid boundaries tend to break away, and we don't react. We simply ask, what is this? Why is it that, what is it that you're doing, and why is it that you're doing this? And it becomes a dialogue rather than an in-your-face confrontation.
Well, that's why I say all the time, Henry, that, and this goes back if David Ray Bowman is still here. Candace says, I want to say that my heart goes out to the Carolinas and Boston. I wanted to say something. Absolutely, Candace. I think we've all been thinking about them. Candace is talking about Hurricane Florence in the Carolinas and maybe even Georgia. And then I'm hearing, Henry, just sometime today, but before we went on air, a huge gas explosion in a suburb of Boston.
Really?
So, yeah. So we're thinking of them as well. Lee says, well put, Henry. David says, yes, I'm still here. David, I was just going to say, because David and I have been talking about this for maybe 10 years or more, in those situations, I always fall back on the best acronym. Breathe in, exhale your name, sift, scan the situation, and then take action. Right? Because even in an emergency situation, the fact that you breathe in, you take in a breath, it communicates subconsciously to your body, wait a minute, it can't be that much fight or flight if he's standing here and taking a breath, right? So you breathe in. The E in best is you exhale your name. Reams and reams and reams of science suggest that when you can remember who you are and you remember where you are, that your body isn't as prone to fight or flight. Scanning or sifting the horizon is because we've all heard of tunnel vision. Whenever you're petrified or you're afraid or you're just enraged, you get that tunnel vision. Well, when you scan or sift your horizon, your eyes have to move back and forth, right? You're scanning up, down, left, right, pivot, swerve, whatever it is. And that's another physiological communication to the chemicals coursing through your body going, how petrified can he really be? How much tunnel vision does he really have if his eyes are busy scanning, right? If he's busy sifting the situation at hand, and this takes 2-3 seconds maybe. And then the T in the best acronym is to take action. So breathe in, exhale your name, scan or sift the situation you're in, then take action. Because then you know that you're using the chemicals in your body aren't using you.
Exactly. At least you know now you're not reacting.
Yes, sir. That's even a better way of putting it. Right? And you're not being hijacked by those chemicals. You're keeping your head in the game, and you go, let me take a breath. all the different tricks in terms of the physiology. Let me breathe in. Let me exhale my name, showing I know who I am. I'm in control. Let me look, my eyes are moving left and right. Think about it. Whenever you're like, you have tunnel vision or you're afraid of something, people go, oh, it was like everything around, all my peripheral vision went gray. All I could see was the threat in front of me. Well, when you cause your eyes to move around, when you scan the situation that you're in, your body goes, wait a minute, what was I getting so worked up about? Then you can take action in that particular moment and all the time. So, David, thank you very much. Yes, you're right. The best acronym. Mitzi says there were many explosions in Boston. Mitzi, thank you very much. I wasn't sure. I saw it. And Candace says it's bad, Mitzi. So, yes, you're right, Candace, to call that out. Thank you. Thank you very much. Mitzi says, how about emotional boundaries for people who are empathetic? You know what, Henry? I'm going to have you take this one, if you would. It's a great question about people that are empaths or people that are overly empathetic or maybe underly empathetic. I'm not sure. What do you think about boundaries, emotional boundaries for people who are empathetic? It's a great question.
Well, I happen to be empathic, and one of the things that I learned, I mean, I used to be able to go, it drove my wife crazy at the time. We'd go to the supermarket and get online, and I'd look at and going, oh my God, this guy's got a bad heart, and oh God, that lady's got cancer, and I'm going, and I had to learn to cut it off. I simply cut it off because to me that was an invasion of privacy. It was something that I really was information I should not know by all stretches of the imagination.
Sure.
And I learned very hard. It was very tough, but I learned to simply control that and just I don't allow it. I tend to I'm sensitive from the palms of my hands. I'm very sensitive with that, and I can hold them up, and I tend to see stuff with them. It's almost like it's another set of eyes. And so I'll stick them under my arm. I'll place them that they face in my chest so that I don't read people. And I've had to purposely do this because it was, to me, a very big invasion of their privacy. That I don't need to know. But I have learned to do that when I'm treating people. Then yes, I do allow that to then go out because I've been given permission, and so then I'll go through and say, okay, fine. Well, there's a tumor back here. You need to go have this looked at. You have to go do this. And I can deal with that, or I can usually get pain very quickly. I find the pain spots because I feel them on my own body, so I just simply go there. Does this hurt? And it's, wow, yeah, it does. And so I've learned where I can use it and where I can't, and it is a hard thing to do. It is a very, very difficult thing to learn how to do, but it's just so critical that we do learn how to do that. And to me, it's practicing. It's to not connect with them energetically. Just forcibly don't allow the connections energetically to go out. And what I'm talking about is we have an energy field. And if you've ever walked into a room and just saw somebody across the room and you instantly liked that person, had to go meet them, or instantly disliked somebody from that distance, that's our energy intermingling with everybody else's energy, and we're picking things up.
Sure.
And it's learning to stop that. It's learning to control that, putting a shield up, protecting yourself from those bombardments. To me, it's an energetic boundary that we have to learn. We don't cross.
Sure.
And we simply put up the defenses to keep people from crossing it to us.
Henry, let me ask real quickly, or let me say hello to Brother Wallman. Thank you so much for joining us. Mitzi says, I'm sensitive with palms too. And then she says center, ground, and block. Is that a term you're familiar with? Center, ground, and block. Okay. Could you explain that for those of us that aren't familiar with it? What are you and Mitzi talking about?
When you center, you force all of your energies towards you. You simply surround. It's like putting on an invisible cape that you actually keep everything controlled. When you ground, you send all of the energies that are coming your way, you send it directly through the ground. You don't let them come into you. And
so it's almost like a horse dance in martial arts. I shouldn't say it's almost like. It's not unlike a horse dance in martial arts where you center your chi and you're able to direct the energy down through the heels of your feet. My good friend Brian Bouchard he's one of those guys that, you can have three guys run at him and you can't move them. When he gets a chance to center to send that energy down through his feet. So is that about the same thing that you and Mitzi are talking about?
It very much so.
Okay.
Very, very much so. Yes.
Well,
And
I've
then the
seen it,
blocking
brother.
is simply putting up protection.
I've been out with you where I've seen people drawn like a magnet to you. You know exactly what I'm talking about. The last one too, right? And just watch it happen. And then, the guy will walk away, or the woman or person will walk away, and then I'll go, just wait for it. 10, 9, 8, 7. And before you get the one, they're right back in. They come back into it. So I've absolutely seen you, and I don't know if that's center and blocking or hook and tackle or whatever the terms of it are, but I've watched people that I go, there's no way this person's going to walk up to Henry. And sure as hell, they walk right up, and you guys are enveloped in a deep, meaningful conversation. It's I've seen it happen when you're in a room. I've seen it.
Yeah.
People can say, and Darren says, "Oh, interesting." Yeah, it's a little spooky, Darren. I got to tell you, because Henry could just do it. Okay, we got 5 minutes left. Can I share what happened between you and me that one time?
Of course.
Sure, you don't mind?
No, not at all.
Okay. So not too long ago, Mitzi says I attract crazies. Well, I am following you, Mitzi, so I think there's some truth in advertising there. She attracted me. So there was a time not too long ago where Henry and I were having a pretty deep conversation. He was helping me with something, and then all of a sudden, honest to goodness, my phone started not like you say, Mitzi, where I lost the signal. My phone's audio started to ebb and flow. I've never seen anything like it. And just as Henry said, okay, so here's what we're going to do. Here's what the energy that we're talking about. Here's this and here's that. Just as he gets ready to start, I go to pick up my phone, and it was hot to the touch. And then Henry and I talked for a couple more seconds. Audio, in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out. We stopped. Never happened before to my phone. Better not. It's an iPhone. Right? All the money you pay, it better not. And it has never happened since. Never happened since. So I've witnessed him do it in person, and I've witnessed him do it over the phone. It's just the freakiest thing, for whatever that's worth. I mean that with all due respect. For you, it's not freaky because it sounds like Mitzi knows what's going on. But for me, I'm like, what are the chances that my phone would start cutting in and out? All right, let's take a quick call. We only have a few minutes. Can we take a quick call?
Sure.
All right, hold on 1 second. Good evening. Welcome to All Natural Being. Who's with us?
Hi, this is Trey from West State University. May I speak with Mr. DeJuan Bland?
I'm sorry, who are you calling?
Dwayne Bland.
I'm sorry, you must have the wrong number, sir.
We apologize for that.
Not at all. All right.
You have a great night.
Thank you, sir. You too. Well, look at that. That could have been my first crank call. See, here's all I'm talking about, Henry. You and I are talking about all this hocus pocus stuff, and then I get my first ever call. I should have. I said, yes, this is Dwayne. Hysterical. It's never happened before. Never happened before. I really like to know if Henry is a healer. I'm sorry, Candace. You did ask that earlier. Wrong number. Was it Mitzi? Was that you? I do attract crazies. Henry, Candace has asked twice. I'd really like to know if Henry is a healer. Don't take my word for it. Henry, how would you describe it?
Yes, I am. I do a lot of healing work. I do a lot of stuff and a lot of energy. I was trained in acupuncture, but I am actually a Qigong master, as far as a medical Qigong master, and a Reiki master, and craniosacral. And I do a ton of energy work, and that's what I do enjoy. So yes, I do that.
And also there. Oh, you have it. Okay, so it's Henry Noel, because Mitzi says she would like to send you a friend request. So if you get a chance to hook up afterwards, that would be great. And I will say this: one of the coolest things, Henry, is the last time you and Rita were here, that when one of my sons tripped and fell, and what was it, his knee or his ankle or whatever?
Yeah.
It wasn't that. But when you're working with them, showing, okay, take your hands and almost like you're vacuuming. You're pulling the pain out. It's like a week later, and he fell off his scooter. And I looked at him. He's going, I go, what are you doing? He goes, oh, Mr. Henry taught me. Like, if you have pain, just go ahead and vacuum it out of me.
Yep.
So it works. It works. Mitzi, let's do this real quick. We only have a minute, but if you can get the call in, the number is 833-462-3968. Mitzi's asking for the number. It's toll free, 833-GO-BU if you have. Henry, you got one more minute? Just get the two of you introduced to each other. It sounds like you know a lot. You two are talking on the same wavelength. So let's see if Mitzi can get through. And she did a great job earlier sounding like that guy from the college.
Oh.
Yeah, didn't she? Yeah, she can do voices. It's uncanny how much she sounded like that guy, I thought. All right, are we going to be able to get the call in before? Henry, I have a friend that is also, her hands get hot, Candace says.
Uh-huh.
Do you find that
Yes.
to be the case
When
also?
Does she do healing work?
Is that a way you can tell, Henry, do your hands get warm? Is that a way for you sensing when I say incoming information, or is that a way to tell?
Yes, very hot.
Okay.
Extremely hot. Yes, it's the energy. It really does, and it manifests a lot. In fact, the hands will turn really beet red. I mean, very red. But that's what it is. Yeah.
All right. Well, Mitzi, I'm sorry about that. That's our toll-free number, 833-462-3968. She's saying that she's getting a weird message. But, Henry, let's do this after the show because we got to run. Yes?
Yep.
And at hospitals, Candace says as well. But go ahead and reach out, if you would, please, to Mitzi. And then also, I've been putting up the transitional radio. Will you post again for me, please, brother, the thread, so that how people can get to the programming on your YouTube page and the SoundCloud page for sure. Would you go ahead and throw that up in the thread as well?
Sure. Not a
Thank
problem.
you, brother. You're just like me. I can hear you typing.
I know. I can't help it. It's those two-finger things, you know.
Oh, I know. Especially when you have two, what is it, pudgy digits? Like when I try to use thumbs. Thank goodness for spell check. I got to tell you, I wouldn't know how to write on my phone. Henry, thank you so much. There's henrygnoel.com. There's the information. And also, Mitzi, if you would, we'll try to figure out why you're getting a weird message. I don't know. Maybe Henry, you know what? Right after the show, would you call me on our toll-free number and let me know if you're having a hard time getting through, and then stick with me through the close. But thank you all so very, very much for joining us here at All Natural Being. Don't forget, we'll take Friday and Saturday off. We'll be back Sunday at 8 p.m. with all kinds of cool things to talk about and some big news coming up as far as 81 to win and some other things going, our move over to our new home at Transitional Radio and some of the other things. Darren, thank you so very much. It's a great show whenever you're involved. I really, truly appreciate your input and the different things. So thank you very much for that. And then we're going to go ahead and get out of there. Until we talk again Sunday night, go be you. Go be your differently. Because your heart's highest priority deserves some time at the top of your list. And anyone that tells you that it doesn't, time to leave them alongside of the road. Trust me, for someone that's got a face for the rearview mirror, like I say, I have a face for the radio, leave them in the rearview mirror. It's not worth your time or your energy. Thank you so very much. Have a fantastic weekend. We'll see you soon.
IPMNation.com.